Justo hoy que tenía que confesarme.
Good morning, everyone. I woke up this morning and decided to do a video on how to beat Eliza, but then Eliza came over and started making pancakes for some reasons. I'm a little bit distracted, but...
Time for breakfast.
Oh wow, that does look delicious actually. Thank you so much. You didn't have to do that. This coffee you made is really great too.
You want more?
No, I'm okay, thank you. I can't have too much caffeine in the morning. It gives me a heartburn. Sorry guys, I'm gonna have to try these, but I'll be right with you, okay? What the... Eliza? Why does the jam smell like blood? Did you put blood on these fucking pancakes? That's not funny. Whose blood is this? Whatever, get the fuck out of here. I have to make a video about how to beat you now. Just because you're being such a bitch, I'm gonna be honest too.
I'll feed on you nice and slow later.
Yeah, whatever. Fuck out of here with this shit. Disgusting. Anyway, today I want to talk about how to beat Eliza. I've been talking about this character on podcasts and in comment sections recently. Some people seem to believe that she's actually very strong, and I don't really agree with that, but I also totally see where they're coming from. This is a very difficult character to play against unless you know how, and knowing how is also difficult because she doesn't exactly play by the rules. She's very unorthodox. She has her own style and her own mechanics. I believe that if more people understood Eliza better, she would have more of a loving welcome in the community, and if teaching the matchup to people means that it's slightly more difficult to get wins online, then that's a sacrifice that I'm more than willing to make. But I'm going to jump over to practice mode right now and give you guys a couple of quick tips that I think are really going to improve your chances in this matchup. Okay, let's start with what I believe to be Eliza's largest and most glaring flaw, which is her lack of lows, or more specifically, lows that don't involve a huge amount of risk for her. She only really has two standard lows, down 3 and down 4, and these moves are both launch punishable. Down 3 is the fast one. This is minus 16 on block, so you might not be able to launch punish it if you play one of the slower characters, but pretty much everybody in the cast can get something really major for blocking this. The down 4 is comfortably launch punishable, and the other two lows that she has, the Moonglide low and the Snake Edge, are of course very launch punishable as well. Now I've heard people say that this Snake Edge is particularly annoying to play against, and you can sort of see why, because she jumps into the air, and she does that in a lot of other moves in her move list. It looks similar to this, for example, and so it can be difficult to see, but there is a sound cue, and this move is very slow at 33 frames to impact, so anybody's going to be able to see this if they focus, if they look for it, and with Snake Edges, seeing them in time just really is the big issue. So that's a general tip. Look out for lows, and whenever you block one, know that you can punish really hard against this character. But let's get more specific and talk about some situations, and I think I want to start with the most iconic one that people get annoyed with when they play against this character, at least in my opinion, and that is dive kick pressure. So my opponent's going to do double dive kicks here, and this can feel very claustrophobic when you're eating it, like she's locking you down, because these dive kicks give advantage, right? It's also difficult to know exactly how much advantage, because you get different amounts of advantage or disadvantage depending on how high a dive kick hits. So for example, if I try and hit my opponent's legs right here, you can see that I got minus 16 right there, which is, I think, close to the maximum amount of advantage you can get. But if I jump into the air and hit her in the head or in the torso instead, I only get plus 10. So that's just to illustrate the fact that this is variable. But I want you to know that when Eliza players say that she really needs the wall to be able to capitalize on these dive kicks, they're not lying, and I'm going to illustrate that now. So for example, if my opponent does 2 instant dive kicks here, if I just backdash a single time in between these, I am comfortably able to sneak out here. And it's important to note that Eliza does not have a good backdash. She actually has one of the shorter backdashes in the game. So if you play a more agile character with a good long backdash, like, you know, Eddie, Miguel, Zafina, you're going to be able to slink out quite comfortably here. And so backdashing out of pressure is important. And I think the thing is, people get sort of stressed out and they stand around, and then eventually they try and swing. And because Eliza likes to do crush moves and go through stuff, that's how they fall down. But if you try and evade it with movement instead, I think you're going to see a lot more success. And even if you are at the wall, by the way, it is possible to both step and walk this. So definitely try and experiment with movement, and don't get too excited about attempting to interrupt or to attack, and definitely don't stand around watching her either. Use your left hand and try and capitalize with some movement. It really does work. Another reason it's so important to use your backdash against Eliza, and that's why we say, you know, just backdash, but there's an element of truth in this case, is that this low right here, which is the clean hit down 3 DP2, requires the clean hit to be a natural combo. Otherwise the DP2 gets blocked and is launch punishable, and it's very difficult for Eliza to get her clean hit if you are backdashing. So it's important to remember your backdash and to remember your movement when you're playing against this character. Next, I want to talk about another iconic sort of famous string with this character, which is her back 1-2. This is a counter hit launcher. It only launches on counter hit, but it's 14 frames to impact mid and has good range. So it is a very good move, but you can play against this string. There's a little bit of a mix-up element to it, but if we have my opponent do it, first of all, there's a third extension, right? Very important to remember. So the first 2 hits, if she does only them, it's -13. You can see it flash past there on the frame data indicator. That means that this is punishable. However, if I attempt to punish, I'm going to spam my jab here. I'm going to get interrupted by that final hit and knocked down. And that is especially important to remember when you're near the wall, because that final hit will actually wall splat. So very important. So what do you do? Well, you have to guess whether or not you think the opponent is going to finish the string. If you think that they aren't going to finish the string, then you wait and you block punish with something 13 frames, for example. But if they keep finishing the string, just step to the side and you can slink out of this as well. And it's not that difficult to do either. So it's important to remember, no need to walk. You can actually comfortably step this in either direction most of the time. And so you have to try and get a sense of whether or not your opponent's going to finish the string or not. And when I play the character, I always alternate because I want to keep my opponent guessing. It's just one of those technique things. But there are ways of dealing with this string, and it's important to remember. Okay, moving on to another situation. What else did I record here that I wanted to talk about? Yes, so in the new season, because of buffs to follow-ups on this Moonglide 4, the Moonglide mix-up is empowered. And Moonglide 4 impacts at 18 frames. It has a lot of active frames, but 18 at the earliest, so it's unseeable in that sense, and so this mix-up works. Now, the mix-up mid is the Moonglide 2, which is the Bloody Claw, and that is actually quite easy to evade with sidestepping and sidewalking. And even the Moonglide 4, even the low, by the way, can be sidewalked. But this low will sort of sneak along the ground and follow you. So it's important that you do a late sidewalk and that you do a nice and big one. You can't really step this reliably. You need it to be a deliberate, nice, and precise movement. But with the Bloody Claw, the 2, it's actually not that difficult. So if we have my opponent do it here, if I do it too early, Eliza's stance is going to follow me along, and she's going to hit me anyway. But if I just do it when she's already on the way in with the Moonglide, it is very possible to step this mid right here, and then you can capitalize with a whiff punch in that scenario as well. Now, when you're eating the Moonglide mix-up, if you're not going to try and avoid it with movement, and you're genuinely being mixed up between this low and this mid, that is a real mix-up. It's a stance mix-up, and those exist in Tekken. There's no way of reliably beating a mix-up every time, because if there was, then it wouldn't be a mix-up. But I would say that it's important to remember whether or not the wall is behind you and whether or not the opponent has meter when you're eating this mix-up. If there is meter, then the EX dive kick is going to be guaranteed here and give her a combo. And if the wall is there, the down 3 DP1 into wall combo is also going to work. And so I think you're more likely to see the low when you're close to the wall, specifically with your back towards it, or your opponent has meter. And when they don't, I think you're more likely to see the mid. But like I said, it is a mix-up and you're going to have to guess. And if you feel strongly, you know what's going to happen. then you can capitalize. A very good way, honestly, just dealing with the low is, of course, to block and launch punish it. And eating the mid is dangerous. It is a big hit, but it is at least not going to lead to giant full combos if it hits you in the open. So maybe that's preferable. Let's move on to the final tip I wanted to give you. And that's her gap closing string, the Helical flow, another signature move for the character that has been heavily nerfed and then given some of its power back in Season 3. So the thing about this string is that it used to jail, and when it jailed you had to block both of these hits, but now you don't. Now the second hit is duckable, you probably know that. But in Season 3 she has a mid extension which looks like this, which will catch you if you're ducking. Now the big tip I want to give you here, the thing that I think people tend to forget, is that while the first hit comes out quite quickly here, because the string doesn't jail, you don't have to decide whether or not you want to crouch until after you've blocked the first hit. I can just stand here and wait, block the first hit, and then if I decide that I think the high is coming, I can try and attempt a duck here. And then I can launch that from while standing. But again, if I'm near the wall and I'm scared of the wall spotting mid extension, maybe I just stand block. But remember that when you're seeing the string and the extension is coming out, if you do stand block, because both options are there's a high and a mid, you at least don't risk eating a lot of damage, because both mids and highs can be blocked when standing, and so unnecessarily attempting the duck because you want to capitalize with a punish might be unnecessary. And again, if she's coming in with Moonglide here, you might think that you're being mixed up and you don't really know what to do, but you can wait for this string until you've seen the first hit and then decide what you want to do about the second one. And that's the important part in my opinion. So some quick pointers on how to do better against this character. Final words. I mean, I've heard some of my friends say that they think this is one of the top 10 characters in the game, and I've never heard a person who plays her say that. But then again, I think we always tend to underestimate our own main characters because we associate them with our personal struggles. But I think Eliza is in a pretty cool spot in Season 3. Definitely not high tier, but better than she used to be. And I'm actually happy with the spot she is in right now. My big takeaway tip would be try to be creative and agile with your movement, because that really is the way to neutralize her. Try and escape her and don't get teased into swinging into her when that's exactly what she wants you to do. Hope it was useful. Thank you so much for watching the video. I'll see you guys again very soon.